Hi there, this is Lois DeWitt. I had a lot of fun with my drawing class doing this, so I'm going to share this exercise with you. Today I'm going to do a still life. I have it set up, some potatoes and with some carrots, and I'm going to do a drawing in charcoal. I'm going to show you a little bit about the qualities of charcoal first, and then I'm going to do the drawing. And then I'm going to make another video showing you how you can bake that potato in the toaster oven and make a beautiful stuffed baked potato. Now, if you're new to charcoal, you might want to do this. This is what I do with my students. I have them purchase a set of charcoal pencils. This is a hard, medium, and soft, so that they can get the feel of each of the qualities of these. And then I have them also purchase some vine charcoal. Comes in little sticks like this. They also need, of course, a sketchbook and a nice eraser. I favor the white eraser for this particular exercise. You can see that what I had them do here is to make a heavy shaded area with the soft, and then lighter, just make lighter lines and then lighter lines, and then smudge it with their finger to see how the tonality goes. And then also with the hard and with the medium. This is actually another pencil that's soft. It's a different brand, so we wanted to compare if they were much different. Didn't seem that they were. And then do this same shading with the vine charcoal. So here I have the medium pencil, and I'm just going to start out. This is a really good way to just get acquainted with charcoal even before you start drawing, just so you can get the feel of what it can do. So basically, I did this fairly dark stripe here, just using a sideways motion and shading, and then a little bit lighter here. Again, just a lighter touch, the same kind of sideways motion. And then another stripe here, a lighter touch yet, and the same sideways motion. So this gives the student an idea of, just by pressing down and shading in a sideways motion, what kind of tonality is produced. Then I have them take their finger and just rub across it like that. You can go in any direction you want. So rubbing it with your finger can produce this kind of gradation. And then if you take a part of a paper towel and just go into it a little bit more, you can see that you can get a finer gradation. Then I have the students take the eraser and just go into the light side a little bit. And then have them smudge it again. So they get the idea that they can add white if they want by just taking some of the charcoal off the page. One other thing I wanted to mention is the difference between charcoal pencil like this or even stick charcoal. I prefer the pencils because I think it's just neater to work with and more controlled. Vine charcoal is fun in the sense that it's this wonderful little shape. It is actually a vine, and it's fun to draw with. However, even on good quality sketchbook paper, you might have noticed in the other exercise that I showed you that the darkness just doesn't translate. I call vine charcoal sort of fugitive that way, that you don't really get the depth with vine charcoal as you do with a charcoal pencil. And then I think that if you're going to learn tonality, you really have to go from very, very dark, be able to produce very, very dark, to a very, very light. So you can see that even when you blend together, The vine charcoal blends very smoothly, but it ends up being quite gray, and you really don't get that tonality with the vine charcoal as you do with the charcoal pencil. So although it's a lot of fun to use, it's not my favorite. Might not also be my favorite because I spent the first year of art school with vine charcoal on newsprint, which has got to be the worst thing in the world to use, and that's just the way I feel. If you're just starting out, you haven't been drawing very long, you might want to use the grid method, which I've demonstrated in other videos, where you separate the paper into a vertical and horizontal and then just handle it square by square. We're not going to do that here today. We're just going to eyeball the drawing. And if you've done the grid method a couple of times, pretty soon you'll be able to draw like this. You want to get all of the objects on the paper. And so you want to, I'm starting with very, very lightly, because I might have to correct it. I'm starting with the basic shapes so that I don't run off the paper, which can happen if you're not careful. The natural tendency is to just start drawing and try to do it very accurately, and then you end up like you have a pretty accurately drawn carrot and everything else can't get on the page because you haven't allowed for it. So I want to make sure I get the corner of this placemat, and I want to make sure I get the correct angle. I want to make sure that I get the shape of the plate relative to that so I can start putting the objects in. Most of the objects down. I'm just doing this very, very lightly. I've had to correct some of the shapes, and this is just this is natural. You'll want to check yourself, get everything down, and then go back and see if the shapes are correct. What I'm going to do is take this paper towel and I'm just going to rub the whole drawing. Now what this does is, obviously my lines are still here and I can work with the drawing, but it also gives me a kind of a tonality. Sometimes the white page of the sketchbook can be really intimidating. So I already have introduced some shading just by rubbing it like this. So now I'm going to go into the shadows very lightly. I'm just going to do the background very lightly. Now, just done the basic shadows, and again, I'm going to take my paper towel. Again, I'm going to go into these areas again now and increase the tonality. And then I'm going to start doing some of the middle shaded areas. And you can see by rubbing that some of the shading is already done. I've developed the shadows further, and I'm going to keep on doing it. And again, I think it's time and if I rub it like this, I'm smoothing out the tonality, and now it'll reach a point where I'm going to start picking out some of the white with the eraser, but I want to play up the tonality a little bit more. So again, I'm going back into the drawing. Now, having rubbed it and just going over my shading again here. You can see it's getting darker and darker. Basically the little parts of the paper, the texture of the paper is filling up with pigment, but I like to do this slowly. I like to slowly build this tonality. And then these areas here that are kind of a light gray, I'm going to go into these again and expand my paper towel. And for the next and last step, there are actually 2 steps involved here. And I'm going to go into the dark areas here, and I'm just going to redefine some of my lines, because this is a study and I'm not going to be really have it a finished drawing. I can redefine my lines. There. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser and go into areas where I want some highlights and just take nice gentle circular motion. Some of the gray out to make the highlights I put in with the eraser. You can see it. These white areas here, and then I'm going to go in and emphasize some of the edges with my pencil. And the nice thing about a charcoal pencil as compared to stick charcoal is that you can sharpen it and get a really nice point. I'm pretty sure the drawing is just about finished. Here are the areas that I went into with the eraser. Just a gentle kind of circular motion. You can see where the white areas are. And then I emphasize some of the really dark shadows here, going over it again. And then I put some really, you don't need to use really heavy lines. You can use light lines just to delineate the edges. See those lines a little bit better if I hold it up like that. But I think this drawing is done, and now on to the baked stuffed potato. And I think you should try using charcoal pencil. It's a lot of fun, and you can see how you can just keep on rubbing it and get all these really neat grays. And then what I've discovered also is that if you want to go into chalk pastels, like a lot of students that take charcoal go into chalk pastels, the technique is very similar, but you're using color. So give it a try.